Hey friend, thank you so much for joining us again today. I'm going to begin the broadcast today by telling you about a gospel tract. Now, this gospel tract we've actually included with our latest newsletter. We just sent another newsletter out. Many of you that are listening right now, if you are a donor to our ministry, you automatically receive our newsletter. And many of you that are listening right now, I know you've invested financially in Bible Tracts Incorporated. You've gotten our latest newsletter. And if you did, there was included with it a gospel tract called You Can Know. And really, I like to know things. I'd much rather know things than to not know things. I don't like to be in the dark, especially when it comes to something as important as our spiritual condition and where we will spend eternity. Did you know that you can know? You can have a certainty of heaven. Let me tell you, in a world where everything seems to be changing so incredibly rapidly, many are seeking a firm foundation. There's probably someone listening to this broadcast right now that would say, I know what you're talking about, man. I understand. I feel like everything's shifting. The wind seems to change all the time. The ground seems to shift under our feet. I'm looking for a firm foundation. You know, people want real answers. I dislike it when people beat around the bush and can't give me a solid answer. Well, how about this deal with heaven? How about the certainty of heaven? Can we know? People have questions about death, heaven, hell, and what will happen after they die. And thankfully, the Bible has those real answers. This gospel tract titled You Can Know, it answers 5 common questions regarding the topics that I just mentioned using the Bible. Imagine that, using the Bible as a guidebook. In addition, this gospel tract expounds on 2 main issues in particular. Where will I go when I die? And can I know that when I die, I will go to heaven? It includes several Bible verses to accompany the doctrinal answers, and these are issues of eternal significance. I'd like to ask you, would you consider ordering this gospel tract today? It just might help you answer these critical questions. And maybe you are a gospel tract user already and you're looking for something else to include in your repertoire. You're looking for another bullet in that gun. You're looking for another arrow in that quiver. Maybe you're a Christian, you've never used a gospel tract before. Well, go to BibleTractsInc.org. BibleTractsInc.org. You can order your very own copies of You Can Know today. Now, on the broadcast, we have a blast from the past. In each of our newsletters throughout this year, we've been including a word from our founder, the founder's pen, from the desk of Dr. Paul Levine. We went back through, and thankfully we have moderately good records. We went back through a bunch of our old newsletters from way back in the day. You say, hold up a second, 1965, 1970, 1980, that wasn't that long ago. Well, I'll tell you this, I wasn't around for Bible Tracts Incorporated back in 1980. Now, if you were, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our ministry since that time. In reality, that's, I say, only 40 years or thereabouts. It feels like it was just yesterday, doesn't it? Really doesn't feel like that long ago, but Dr. Paul Levine, we've included an article in today's broadcast and in our newsletter from our founder, Evangelist Paul J. Levine. And this one was taken from the spring 1980 Bible Tracts Inc. newsletter. I'd like to ask you to notice specifically that Dr. Paul pleaded with the readers of that newsletter 42 years ago to pray about the need for a new building all the way back in 1980. It's funny, I've been asking you to pray about a new building here at Bible Tracts, and it's amazing. God answered prayer back in 1980. He answered prayer in 2020, 2021. The same God that answered that prayer 40-something years ago is still alive and still answering prayers today. Praise him, praise him. Here's how he always started. Hello, everybody. Maybe some of you that have listened to this broadcast for many decades will recall that very distinct welcome of Dr. Paul. Hello, everybody. He says this: we hope you'll read every word of this Bible Tract Bulletin and be encouraged by some of the reports to distribute tracts yourself and be challenged to have a part in this worldwide ministry. Now, he jumps into a few things that we will not include in this broadcast, but he talked about and asked the readers back in 1980 to consider the overseas reports of how God has blessed and be reminded that they needed at that time about 15 million tracts to catch up with all of the requests. They were also praying about 1 million gospel tracts for a Spanish crusade, for a Mexico crusade down south. He then said this specifically: friend, we desperately need office space and equipment. He gives a total that they were hoping to have in the building fund in the near future. He said, right now, we're just using the radio room provided for us by a church in the area where they were members, Calvary Baptist Church of Normal, Illinois, back in the day. And I want to say thank you to Calvary Baptist Church. They're actually putting together a Paul Levine Memorial Garden. And so they've been longtime investors in this ministry, and he referenced them back in 1980. He then goes on and says, read about 500,000 Korean folks here in America, and the effort to reach them with the gospel with the help of our Korean gospel tracts. I was actually just going through some of our foreign language gospel tracts and picked up one or two that were in the Korean language. How amazing is it to know that they were passing them out years ago, and we still continue to now. He said, perhaps, this is Paul Levine saying this 40 years ago, perhaps you should consider the gift to Bible tracts of property as a tax write-off. He said, talk to your tax consultant about this. And during my tenure, last 18 months, almost 2 years, I guess we're coming up, can you believe it, on 2 years, I don't know that we've had anyone give property to Bible Tracts Incorporated in that time. Today, this week, that sounds like a really good thing if someone felt burdened about that, but I digress. He continues on to say, Paul Levine does, some of you have written to assure us of your prayers. Thank you so very much. It's a great encouragement to us. Please pray for the following: that all printing bills can be paid soon, that all radio bills will soon be met, that God will perform a miracle by supplying a building for office equipment. Now get this, he said, including 2 IBM automatic typewriters. You remember those things? I don't think we have any of those still around the offices. Now, these days, we're trying to figure out if we're going to go with Apple or with Macs or with Dell or Intel or you name it, trying to figure out what direction the Lord would have us go with new office equipment. I don't think we'll be investing in any IBM automatic typewriters, but the Lord must have supplied that need. He continues on asking for God's leading and provision concerning computer purchases and service, and that's something we're actually looking forward to as well for our ministry, because we do so much. My office manager, operations manager, Austin Marriott, does such a great job with the design. He's using some fairly souped up computers to do all of that work, and there's always a need. Computers never stay running for more than 2, 3, 4 years, it seems like. So we're also praying that way these days. It's amazing how some things don't change in 40 years. He said this, number 6, that many people will remember Bible Tracts Incorporated in their wills, in their end-of-life planning. If you have questions about that, we'd love to hear from you. He said, number 7, that many will remember Bible tracts in their year-end giving to take advantage of tax deductions. And that would be our prayer again this year. This year it's really staggering to know that God has blessed our ministry in such a great way. This year is going to be a phenomenal year for Bible Tracts Incorporated. But can I tell you, what that's allowed us to do is broaden our reach. We've sent gospel tracts to over, let's see here, we're about 4 dozen countries just in the last 12 months or so, but we'd love to expand that. Next year, we're already thinking about and considering goals. I want you to pray for wisdom as we set goals and we bring those to you, our audience, our benefactors, our donors, our prayer warriors. Think about that. It's amazing to know that 40 years ago, Paul Levine was doing his utmost for the glory of God, and we are today continuing on as we can, as best we can. Remember, one of our core values, the power of the gospel is in the word and not the worker. You see, Bible Tracts Incorporated, it's not about Micah McCurry. It wasn't about Paul Levine. It's not about Austin Marriott or any of the team that currently works here. It wasn't about, and Mark Smith would be the first to say this, it wasn't about Mark Smith for the 15 years that he was the head of this ministry. Bible Tracts Incorporated is all about the glory of God, and I'm so excited to see that people are continuing to give, continue to partner with us. Number 8, he said, now this was 40 years ago, but we'd pray this way too. He said that God will provide funds for at least 15 million tracts. Now, this year, we are going to get ever so close to printing 15, or being a part of printing 15 million gospel tracts. I'd love to one-up that number next year. I'd love to do even more. He said that God would give us one, and I get this if you would. Now, he was praying for this 40 years ago, and I'll say this, I'll pray the same thing, that God will give us 1,000 churches and individuals and people that will include Bible Tracts Incorporated in your regular budget, in your regular missions budget. Would you consider, maybe your church doesn't give to missions. Maybe you should talk to your pastor and say, hey, pastor, we'd love to, and don't make Bible Tracts the very first one. Maybe make us the 3rd, 4th, or 5th or something like that. Take on some great, I could give you reams upon reams of names of good missionaries. If you don't support any missionaries yet, take on somebody else and come back to us. But in all seriousness, if you're a part of missions giving, would you consider supporting Bible Tracts? Paul Levine prayed that way 40 years ago. I'll pray that way today. He continues on that God will open many doors for preaching and presenting the ministries, and I'm praying for that next year. I just had the opportunity to schedule another meeting, a week of missions conference in the spring of next year. I'm excited about all these things, but I'm going to ask you, if you would you pray specifically for that? He ends this way. Thank you so much for your kindness and concern for the future of Bible Tracts Incorporated as we serve local churches. And here, in the last paragraph, he says, if you belong to the right kind of a local church, you need to support that ministry, your local church first. Then, and only then, do as God leads you in helping us spread the gospel by literature, radio, internet, in meetings across America and the world. God bless you, and please, can we hear from you real soon? If you have a question, comment, criticism, concern, I want to hear all of them. You can text me. Here's that phone number. I'll give it to you one time, real slow. Listen, are you ready? 309 316 7240. Have a great day for His glory. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us today for Bible Tract Echoes, a ministry of Bible Tracts Incorporated. If you would like to receive a free sample packet of all of our tracts, you can contact us by calling 309-828-6888. That's 309-828-6888. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 188, Bloomington, Illinois, 61702. A faster way to contact us is to go to our website at BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. There you will find more information about our ministry and details on how you can support Bible Tracts Incorporated. Thanks for listening, and may the Lord richly bless you as you serve Him.